I will introduce myself. Hi, my name is Christina Kim. I'm with Cal State Fullerton's Extension and International Programs. We are part of the Arboretum team, or the Arboretum team is part of us. And so we welcome you to our kind of first ever virtual workshop that is featuring our Veggie Palooza, which is really one of the largest plant sales that the Arboretum hosts. We hope that everyone who joins today, joins this workshop today, will order and support the Arboretum. As you guys are all probably aware, the Arboretum is currently closed to the public and to campus community as well, due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We hope to open as soon as possible and as soon as we are able, but your support, your membership is greatly appreciated and is greatly needed, especially in this time when we're not able to run a lot of the programming that we have been during the times that we are open. So I do hope, we all hope that after this, if you are not a member, that you become a member. If you become a member today, you can start shopping for your Veggie Palooza plants starting tomorrow. You get a whole day before everyone else. And I believe you get a 10% off discount as well. And I hope to show you a little bit of my garden that features some of the Veggie Palooza plants from last year. So I'm very excited to introduce to you two members from the Arboretum staff. We have Greg Pongetti, who is our gardens curator. He is our living collections curator, and he is kind of the person that knows all things horticultural. And we also have Miguel Macias. He is the education manager, has managed a lot of and coordinated a lot of education programs, tours, all things related to teaching kids, teaching adults, has gone through Miguel's eyes. So with that, let's get started. If you have a question, please enter them into the Q&A. If I can answer them, I will answer them in the Q&A box, or if it's something to be posed to one of our speakers, I will also ask our speakers your question. So feel free to ask your question. All right, and with that, I will send it over to Miguel.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Let's get started. Hopefully this presentation is to motivate you into gardening or into growing your own vegetable gardening. So let's get started. All right, so new to gardening or you're lacking a green thumb, well, here's some of the topics that we'll be covering, or we're gonna try to cover as much as possible. We're gonna try to motivate you to get you started. We're gonna be covering the basics or the very basics of gardening, how to maybe evaluate the available space. We're gonna talk a little bit about easy vegetables to grow. In other words, we want to make it as easy as possible to keep you motivated. And we're gonna talk a little bit about maintenance. So with that, I'm gonna pass it over to Greg.
Before Greg starts, I'd like to take a very quick poll, and I'm going to ask this. I'll give you guys 5 to 10 seconds to answer. It's a very simple question. It is anonymous, so please answer. Have you been to the Arboretum, the Fullerton Arboretum on campus? Ooh, those are coming in quickly.
Wow.
All right. I'm going to close it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So it looks like 78% of you have been to the Arboretum, so you know something about us. That's great. Thank you. All right, Greg.
All right. Hello, everybody. I wanted to talk a little bit about the sale itself at first here. It is our annual plant sale of a lot of different types of veggies and herbs and flowers and things. This year, we are going to have an online ordering and curbside pickup format. It's going to be similar to the way we held our California native plant sale last year. Ordering will start for members tomorrow on the 19th. And then the public ordering will start on the next day, the following day, from the 20th to April 2nd. If you want to get in on the member ordering, I suggest you become a member tonight after this presentation, and then we'll be able to record your order tomorrow. We do have over 200 different types of veggies and herbs to choose from this year. a lot of people are really excited and enjoy kind of perusing our list and choosing all the different plants that they're going to plant this year. But some people just feel very overwhelmed with the selection. So we will be offering something called the Victory Garden to Go. And if you were involved in our sale last year, you kind of know what that is, but it's basically going to be 10 plants that we will select for you. And that'll include probably 3 different tomatoes, 3 different peppers, 3 different herbs, and then 1 just kind of wild card, 3 plants that we will include in there. But it'll be pretty fun to kind of see what you get, and that's something that you could do if you want. Otherwise, go ahead and give us your specific orders. This year, typically we will have some ornamental plants for sale at our nature sale, our nature center during the Veggies sale, so people could buy those plants as well. This time we will be adding over 200 different ornamentals to our sale. It includes a lot of California natives, succulents, roses, and much more. A lot of different plants from different Mediterranean climates from all around the world, and some desert plants as well. If you do order ornamentals and edible plants, we have 2 separate lists for those on our website, but we would like it if it was all, if it all came to us in one single order. The curbside pickup is scheduled for April 12th through the 18th. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about the ordering process itself, because some people get a little confused with it. We do not have a simple online ordering system, so it has to be through email. What we ask people to do is just send us an email with your order that contains all the plants that you want. That email address is not available right now. We are going to provide that tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. And all you do is send an email with your order to that address. We'll take your order, check it against our inventory, and fill your order. If you would like to supply us with an alternate plant choice, if your first choice was sold out and you want to supply us with an alternate, we will use that alternate plant to fill that order. If you don't, then we will just not add any more plants. And then after we check the inventory, fill your order, we'll get back to you with the amount that you owe and a order confirmation, and some payment instructions. After you pay, you will then receive more instructions on how to pick up your plants, which will be, again, April 12th through the 18th. And there's a few other things I'd like to mention about this sale, and that is that volunteers help grow all these plants. We're growing close to 14,000 plants this year. We cannot do it without the help of our volunteers. So that's a very important process to us, and we're very grateful for all of our volunteers. Another important note is that all these proceeds will go directly to the Arboretum. All the plants are grown at the Arboretum from seeds. We do not use pesticides on the plants. We use a small amount of fertilizer, but it's the minimal amount that we try to use the minimal amount in order to grow healthy plants, but not over fertilize. So in general, they're very tough plants and ready to go, ready to plant in the ground. Everything's looking really good this year, so everybody should be excited about getting some new plants. So I think now I will turn it back over to Miguel.
All right, before Miguel starts, I'm going to ask my second poll question, just to get a sense of who we have in the audience. So I'm going to give you guys, again, about 10 seconds to answer. And the question is, what is your gardening skills level? So we don't have any requirement for this workshop. It really is intended for people who are new to it. So are you brand new? You dabble? Are you a weekend gardener? Are you a pro landscaper? All right, I'll give another 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Great. Okay, so it looks like we've got the majority of the people here pretty much dabble. So I hope you're able to walk away from this having learned something and more excited to garden. All right, Miguel, thank you.
All right, thanks, Christina. All right, so let's get started. Okay, hold on 1 second. There we go. All right, so we created this presentation with the intention of, addressing small gardens, especially with people with not a lot of space in their yards. So hopefully some ideas here would pop up and will help you determine what you have at home, or you can do at home. Now, here's one option: vertical gardens. If you don't have that much space, let's say you have a small backyard, you can just build something on your wall that you can put your vegetable plants or any kind of plant really. You can make it as expensive as you like, or maybe you can just make it as convenient and inexpensive. Like, for example, this pallet here. I mean, you just set up the pallet. It has the minimal what do you call
Footprint.
it supplies the minimal, right? You can just put it up. You can make a few adjustments and you can have your vegetables grow there or any sort of plants. Very, very convenient. There's also hanging plants, right? If you don't have the space also, but I mean, this obviously you can use, just use any pot of container and just hang it anywhere around the backyard. It could be under a tree, even if if the plant doesn't require that much sunlight. You can use any pots and containers, and you can get creative. As you can see here, this person just went to town with it. Obviously, they can be stacked anywhere there, and you can just grow them there. Same with this. This is actually a picture from Texas A&M, and it was actually an experiment, but I just wanted to show you the other possibilities, having maybe a raised bed and still use containers. And you recycle containers, if you want to be sustainable, or you really admire sustainability or watch sustainability, this is another way. You can just recycle your containers. One thing I want to caution you with that is make sure they're not toxic. They didn't have any toxic chemicals or anything, just something to watch out. But you can use any of those. It'll be sustainable. And of course, something really neat is the raised beds. And for that, I created a whole slide just for this. Now, raised beds are they can be convenient. Here, I'm going to talk about the pros and the cons on it. As you can see, they can be really nice. They can be really pretty, or they can just be as simple as you would want them, right? So here's some of the pros that we came up with. Here's a list. So it helps improve growing season. For example, think of the season, just elongating the season, right? For let's say it's spring. If you have it in a raised bed, the temperature is going to be raised a lot quicker, and you'll be extending the time that you are allowed to grow all those plants or maybe vegetables.
Miguel?
Yes.
I'm getting a comment that the volume is a little low. Can you speak up a little bit more?
Yes, I'll try to speak louder. Is that better? I hope. Okay, and then other possible pros, it's soil control. Soil control, because you're the person who's going to be adding all the soil, you actually get to control what you put into that bed. Space saving, right? And again, this is all for small garden mentality. If you put a small bed or a raised bed, you'll have a ample space to organize all sorts of plants there, and you'll be saving some space. And now the drainage would be really good, since the bed is raised. any excessive water is just going to drain out of it, so you won't have problems with that. And easily accessible. Some call it ergonomic because, you know, since they're raised, it becomes a little easier on your back and your knees. And of course, reduce runoffs and erosion, right? And easily maintained, just like I said, ergonomic. They're raised, and maybe it's easier to just start pulling weeds if you start getting them. Now, some of the cons. Obviously, costs, right? You would have to spend money on construction, obviously. You know, wood, uh, bolts, nails, you name it, whatever you decide to use it, or you can just keep it as simple as possible. And of course, time consuming. You need to put the time to construct it or maybe design it. And once you have it, you need to keep maintaining it. Here's the problem with it too, or that can be a problem: excessive heat and drainage. So since the bed is raised, if you have, per se, a warm day or a hot day, you got to make sure you're watering it. Otherwise, your plants are just going to start wilting or maybe even desiccate. Confined roots. If you have too many plants, or you have certain plants that grow large roots, then you can have a problem with that, as they'll be confined. And the soil quality, like I mentioned, since you're the one adding all the soil to this bed, it's really up to you how, you know, the quality of the soil. Excuse me. And then of course, poor air circulation. You're gonna need to get in there and make sure you're turning it or getting some sort of air circulation in there. So since we're talking about small space gardening, you know, you can just get creative. You need to evaluate, for example, this picture, I took it from the internet, and you can see that person just used pallets, put a bunch of pots, and did the best they could with the little space available. But other things to consider is like, well, what about sunlight? Will I have enough sunlight for my plants? You know, it's like, so here's one of the things that I put together. So if you have full sun, if you're lucky enough to have full sun, here's some suggestions of some plants that you can grow. And but what I mean by this, well, you can basically grow fruits, right? And what I mean by that, by fruit, is any fruit that has a seed. So the first one that I have here is tomato, and I'm sure people were like, wait, that's a vegetable, right? So it's actually a fruit. So any fruit with seeds, I would recommend the full sun. So it would have squash, eggplant, melons, and of course the peppers. Now, some of this actually have deep roots, so that's something to take into consideration. Now, what's full sun? Now, when we talk about full sun, we're talking about anywhere from 6 to 8 hours of sunlight, and this is for maximum yield. It doesn't mean you still need, you know, all those hours. The plants will still grow, except that, you know, if you're looking for full sun or a maximum yield, then you need more than those 8 hours of sunlight. Then we move to partial sunlight. And we're talking about anything with leaves or roots. And partial sunlight, we're talking with 3 to 5 hours of sunlight or exposure. Like I said, leaves or roots, carrots, actually you can grow year round. We got potatoes, chives, and radish. Now, radish, for those beginners or people who are starting with their gardens, this is a good way to start. You know, it's easy, it grows really fast, and it's easy to experiment with the radishes. Excuse me. Then we got indirect sunlight. So it's perfect for windowsills. Although they're not, you know, the best option or scenario for this, you can still get away with it. You can grow anything woody, such as sage, basil, thyme, oregano. I also I had mint and I took it off, but you can have mint. Some of the things you just have to watch out for those is that they can be invasive. So if somehow they get into your garden, they're just going to spread everywhere. But some of us are okay with that. So.
Miguel, we did have
Yes.
a question in, and I
Okay.
think you answered. What is a good vegetable to grow inside? So it looks like you covered some of the herbs.
Yes. So some of this would be, like I said, it's not the best, but you can still get away, you know, growing in on a windowsill. And yeah, some of this, I believe some of this actually can grow year round as well. Greg, if you want to chime in and say something.
Yeah, I would probably, I was trying to think of an actual fruit or vegetable that would be okay inside. And the problem is that the amount of light that it's going to get is probably not going to be adequate to promote flowering and fruit production. Therefore, the herbs are a little bit better for that because you're not even looking for the fruits or the flowers and the fruit production on those. It's just simply the leaves themselves. So I would stick probably to the herb.
Miguel, so we
Yeah.
got in another question from somebody who asked, can I please see the speaker's garden? So I can share my garden. I'm not a speaker and I am not a seasoned gardener. However, I did buy vegetable plants from Veggipalooza last year, and I am actually very proud to show my garden. That's why I'm doing it in the backyard. So I actually have a raised garden bed, and you can see my plum tomato, my San Marzano, still blooming, or whatever the word is. Tomatoes growing, and I have a jalapeno plant back here as well that's also starting to grow out. So I have automatic sprinkler set up, and I know Miguel's going to talk a little bit about watering later. So my parsley, my mint, and my cilantro plant, along with my rosemary, thyme, and sage, they're all out of control. So that's all I have to share. I hope that helped.
Thank you, Christina. And I thought about setting out in the backyard so I could show some of these plants too, but I don't know if anybody here was at my composting workshops. And here's the problem at here. I got my neighbor, they have 3 pit bulls on one side, and my other neighbor has a pit bull on the side, and they start barking. And I mean, you're having trouble hearing me now. You can imagine that. Now, we're out in the open. And you all of a sudden you start hearing electrical saws or big trucks backing up, or you name it. So that's why I'm in the room. Sorry, but I would love to show it. Okay, so anyway, so moving on, planting and maintenance. So Christina, thank you for sharing that. I'm glad you had that ready there. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the maintenance or planting, drainage. So if you get a container, you got to make sure that it has holes on the bottom for drainage. You want to get that excess water or get rid of it. Otherwise, the roots they may rot. Choose a potting soil good for vegetables. Make sure you're choosing the right one, because there's some other ones that would be more like, for example, if you got ornamental plants, it would be something more sandier, and it won't retain water as much. So make sure you're choosing the right one, like a vegetable one. I'll talk a little bit more about this if we get to the compost part. Um, you know, Plain simple, dig a hole. Um, if you're planting seeds, I know if you're coming to get some of the plants here, you just have to transplant. But if you're planting seeds, how deep of a hole do I dig? A good rule of thumb is, twice the diameter of the seed, and you can just cover it cover it gently and with your finger, and then just make sure it has enough water. So, but if you come and buy plants at Veggipalooza, obviously it'll be ready for transfer. You can just remove the plant from the container. Just make sure you loosen a little the bowl of the root and put it into the ground. Now, make sure it's level and add some mulch, but be sure that the mulch is not touching the stems of the plant. Yeah, or as I always say, they're going to become part of the composting process, right? And they're going to start uh, decomposing. Make sure you're watering thoroughly. And fertilizers, well, uh, add the fertilizer as needed. And there's some range out there. I compost at home, and that's really what I use, all my fertilizers. And the other thing about compost is, if you keep your soils healthy, you don't have to worry much about pests. So keep your soil healthy, choose the right fertilizer, use compost, use it as a fertilizer or as mulch, and you won't have as much problems with pests. some of the
Miguel,
best.
we have a
Yes,
question in. How
sure.
soon can I plant after I get my plants? I guess when somebody picks up their plants from Veggie Palooza, how soon can they plant?
I believe they're ready. Greg, what do you think?
Yes, these plants are going to be ready to go, and they can be planted immediately. We actually typically hold our sale the third weekend in March, so things are delayed a little bit, but April is still a fantastic time to plant. So yeah, mid-April, when you pick up your plants, you can take them home and plant them right away.
One thing that I'll comment on, last year when I purchased it, I actually did have them just sit in their pots for a couple of weeks before I was able to buy and set up my raised garden beds. So they seem pretty hardy, at least from last year's. And all my plants have, all but my basil has survived. But we can talk about why my basil plant did not survive.
All right, thank you for sharing that. Okay, so best practices, use appropriate soil or planted medium. And I think as simple as possible, you can keep it. Now, here's a recipe that I use. It's 2 parts compost, 1 part vermiculite, and 1 part cocoa coir. Now, the original recipe calls for peat moss instead of cocoa coir, but the thing with peat moss is not as renewable. It takes a long time to replace or to grow. So something more sustainable, it would be coconut coir. So very simple. Like I said, you can make your own compost as well. And water, if you're planting from seeds, make sure you're watering constantly. Most vegetables germinate in 1 to 2 weeks. And what you want to do is you can start actually irrigating as much. Let me show you this chart. So when to water, that's a question that, especially new gardeners always have. Now, if we're here in Southern California or here actually in Orange County, if it's spring, recommend that maybe water once a week. If it's the summer, 2 to 3 times a week, depending on your location. And, if we have heat waves. So if we have a heat waves or it's very windy, we get hit by the Santa Ana winds, you might have to water more than 3 times to make sure that the plants are well watered. You have to keep in mind, one of the recommendations with heat waves or windy days, if you know that we're having those, we strongly recommend for you to water those plants the night before or really early that morning to make sure that they're ready for either the heat or the wind. And just make sure you keep monitoring the moisture level on those plants. And then we're going to talk, here's the thing about irrigation. So this presentation was originally just to motivate the new gardener. So in terms of irrigation systems, there's a lot, and we just wanted to keep it as simple as possible for this presentation. But Greg is going to talk a little bit about what systems we have at the Arboretum.
I do have a quick question from somebody. Why do we have to wait until April to get the plants? I think part of that, and I was asking Greg on the side, one is in our current pandemic situation with a curbside pickup, we did have to plan this a particular way so that orders were done online. Because typically Veggie Palooza has always been an in-person, you go, you see the plants, you talk to the horticulturist, you ask questions, you pick it up, you purchase there and walk away. Because it's closed, because of our current pandemic situation, we have changed all the ordering system. And so now the ordering is done online via email, and then we set it all up for you and you come and do a curbside pickup. Also, because of, I think, planning, the seating started a little bit later as well. So April just ended up being really the right time to do the pickup. I hope that answers.
All right, so, oh wait, go back one. Oh. All right, so about irrigation, that, like as Miguel said, there are a lot of different possibilities here, and this could be a whole entire class itself. But what I wanted to point out is a lot of different examples of kind of some simple irrigation designs that we actually use at the Arboretum, and it has proven to be pretty successful for us. And so the key is simple. For all these systems, there is no digging or trenching. It's kind of using existing systems or just simply connecting a hose. So it's just connected to a hose bib. The bottom 4 photos, you can see are a few different examples of sprinklers that you attach to a hose. There are a lot of different options that you could buy at the store, and those, a lot of those will work just fine. Those bottom 2 photos on the right are a couple examples of some things that we've pieced together with PVC and then added a sprinkler on top. That's a rotor sprinkler and a impact sprinkler. And so those sprinklers are able to throw water a great distance, much farther than, say, a spray head, which is what people typically use on their lawns. So that's an advantage to those, and that's what we use in the garden quite often to water large areas that do not have an automated irrigation system. The little yellow sprinkler is one that we also like to use. It's good for deeper soaks on trees and things of that nature. But if you had a relatively small vegetable garden, you'd probably want to go with something about that size. And then the photo on the bottom left has just a couple of different types of sprinklers. You have from left to right, you have just a simple rotor. And then the next one over is a pop-up rotor head. And then the next one over there is a spray head. And then on these spray heads, you could actually have a lot of different types of nozzles. There's actually rotating nozzles that you could purchase as well. All of those things do a good job for us in our garden, in the Arboretum. But the sprinklers are not the most efficient use of water. That's if you want to be a little bit more efficient and deliver water directly to the soil, then you're going to want to use some of these drip systems. Now for the for the drips, we have the top left there. You can see that that's actually just a garden hose plugged into a kind of like a modular drip system that we have set up in our rare fruit collection to water our fruit trees. That can easily be reduced in size and kind of laid out to water a small vegetable garden. It'd be no problem. The photo in the top middle is actually a adapter that is used on top of a spray head to convert a sprinkler system to a drip line. Now, if you take that approach, you do not actually want to run, you don't want to try to run drip irrigation on the same line as a sprinkler system. But if you did a conversion of the whole entire thing, then that could be okay. And if you notice it has brown tubing coming out of that adapter. The brown tubing is actually a tubing with inline emitters, whereas a lot of the black tubing is it's just a blank tubing with no holes in it, and you have to make your hole, insert your emitter, and that top right photo is an example of a lot of different types that you can purchase. There's also soaker hoses and things of that nature. But what I wanted to point out mostly is that all of these are very simple, pretty straightforward. It does not take digging and trenching and everything. And simple plug into a hose. There's a lot of pros and cons to this kind of a system. The pros are that it's easy to set up. It's relatively inexpensive installation. It's easy for a homeowner to do this themselves. It can be used as sort of a modular or seasonal system. So say you have an area where you grow, a vegetable garden just in the summertime, or say you want to move everything out of there, go in there and rototill, or go in there and add some compost and dig the soil up. If you're going to do all that, you can simply just move the whole system out of the way because it's just flexible tubing, and then put it right back in place. Or you could even easily change it. So you're not locked into a permanent decision. It's something that you could kind of experiment with and play around with quite a bit. Good thing about this, a lot of people will just do the old-fashioned simple way of just holding the hose out there and watering their garden. That's the way I kind of like to do it. To me, it gets you engaged with your plants a little bit more. You're out there, you're looking at your plants, you're noticing, oh, cool, there's little pollinator wasps coming over and visiting the flowers of my old cilantro plant. And I can see that there's some aphid carcasses there that have been, the wasp has laid its eggs inside, and the wasp larvae have hatched outside of them. And you might see birds and butterflies and all those types of things. You're kind of more in tune with your plants if you're directly watering them yourself. But a lot of people don't have time for that, so this would be a pretty good option. Something that you plug a hose into, turn it on, let it run for an hour or so, and then go back out there and turn it off. Now, some of the cons of this are, if you forget to turn it off, you might flood your garden, which is an issue. It's not necessarily an automated system. It can be very simple without automation, but there are a variety of timers that are available that you could actually use and hook up to a hose. Hook up to a hose bib, and then you hook your hose up to that timer. You can set it for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever it takes. Let it run, and then it'll shut off automatically. There's actually also digital ones that you could just plug into a hose bib, and it'll run like a whole irrigation system. So a lot of possibilities there.
Greg, we have actually Greg and Miguel. We have a few questions kind of around irrigation, and we'll see who's able to answer some of these. I will say going into irrigation is actually quite important, and because I think how you water your plants is actually a big part of your plants surviving. So one question that came in, and Priyanjali, we'll talk about basil later if we have time. I totally agree with you, but I think a lot of people's basil always dies. But Amy Jo asks, if you have a deep pot or raised bed, do you need a drainage layer? For instance, rocks. How much soil and how thick of the mulch layer?
A layer of drainage for at the bottom of the pot?
I guess she's just asking if you need a drainage layer, if you have like a deep, if you have one of those maybe like 5 bucket gallons and you're planting a tomato in there. That's going to be my guess. Do you need like a drainage layer in there?
No, typically you do not. If you look at any nursery plant grown, they never put, rocks or anything or broken up pieces of things. They don't ever put that in the bottoms of their pots. It should be able to drain just fine.
Yeah, I didn't put a drainage layer. Mine's not very deep, but my raised bed does not have a drainage layer. Maria asks, how often do we need to water veggies? Every day or every other day? I have an answer. And Greg Diamond, the Arboretum director, said to me, Christina, you need to water your plants every day, every morning. So I will say what has revolutionized my raised bed garden is I had my sprinklers fixed over the summer, and I actually had sprinklers set up so it waters the vegetable garden. It did it every day for a while, and then now I'm at like 3 days a week, and it waters every morning at 6 a.m. for like 3 to 5 minutes. That has kept my vegetable garden going. I don't know if others have other thoughts.
So yeah, it depends on the time of year, depends on the weather, depends on the soil It depends on the amount of exposure that the plants have. I will typically, I might start a garden in March or April. I might just water once a week. It's okay. What I always tell people is put your fingers in the soil and then you'll know. If the top 1 to 2 inches is dry, you should be watering. If it's still super wet, take a day off, take 2 days off maybe. You have to go out there and check it on a daily basis. It's difficult to just say, just do it this much. It's more a thing that you have to observe, learn yourself, learn your situation in your own backyard. Get to know your own soil.
We have a lot more, I think, more slides to go through. So Beth had asked a question about the right top picture of the irrigation system. Greg, do you want to quickly answer that, and then we can move on to the next slide? She said that you faded out when you described the top right picture.
The top right is just a simple, that's a part of a drip system. That emitter is called a bubbler type of an emitter. And it will water, it shoots kind of little streams of water in 360 degrees. Projects it maybe about a foot or so across. But it's made to apply a pretty significant amount of water as far as drip systems.
We've got 15 minutes.
All right, go to the next slide.
Miguel, keep it going.
So there is one example of a micro spray sprinkler. We use those on our citrus trees. It could easily be converted and used to water a vegetable garden. The good thing about that is that you could spread them out a little farther because they throw water for a couple of feet. And then the last option there was drip tape. And that is a very cheap material. It's better for something in long rows and larger areas where you need to water larger areas with row crops. All right, I think we're good on irrigation. Back to you, Miguel.
All right, thanks, Greg. All right, so since we're focusing on small space gardening, if you don't have space for composting, then vermicomposting, it would be perfect for you. So it's obviously perfect for smaller places. You can stack them under the kitchen sink in your office. By the way, I had my warm bin compost in my office for 6 years until the pandemic. I had to bring him with me. No one ever complained about smells or anything. Most people actually at the Arboretum didn't even know I even had a compost bin, a warm compost bin, and under my desk. Anyway, so it's very convenient, perfect for small places. It's great in diverting trash, what we call trash. A lot of this trash can be diverted from landfills since they're getting full. Here's the best part. It keeps the soil healthy and rich, once you use this as a fertilizer. So you're basically turning trash into plant food or plant fertilizer. Here's the image. So I'm going to go quickly to this so we can get to the question. So warm bins, you can have commercials, which it has all this convenience, easy of harvesting, continuous flow, vertical movement for the worms. They're stackable and they have a spout. You can build your own with all these features, except that it's probably a lot cheaper, and you get to design it the best in the best possible way that would help you. It's very simple. You just go out to the store. This is what I did. This is not my pictures, by the way, but this is exactly what I did. It's just 2 containers. I believe it was like under $10 each. I purchased 3 and I stacked them, and it's just the top with the lid. I drilled holes on the side. Here, let me show you what I did. Plastic tub again. Make sure that the plastic is not clear. Make sure that it's deep color. So here's the thing. Worms don't have real eyes and they don't like light. So make sure you keep them in the dark. Drain some holes for aeration. The top side, I used 1/4 inch holes. and aeration for aeration, obviously. And then the bottom side, I did the same, something similar here um, for drainage, and of course for worms to go from one container to the other. It becomes handy because let's say it's time for you to collect the castings, and you start putting all the food scraps into a new container. Worms start traveling, and all you have to do is just empty the old container in, and you don't have to move the worms from one place to another. They do it by themselves. So this is some ideas of what they could look like. And again, the one I had in my office, it was the commercial one because it was donated to the Arboretum. But at home, I do have mine, which is pretty much like this blue container. Now I have two at home, so lots of worms. Somebody needs worms, let me know. Maintenance is pretty easy. You just have to come up with the bedding. It could be anything like from shredded paper, newspaper. It works perfect. Straw works well. The thing with straw, and here, let me show you all these options. The thing with some of this, like straw or wood chips, you have to leave them soaking in water so they can become soft. You have to remember that the worms, they don't have any teeth, right? So the softer the better. Because this bedding, it's actually gonna serve as food also. So if you forget to feed your worms, you don't have to worry because they'll start eating their bedding. So there's some shredded cardboard. Now with shredded cardboard, you just have to watch out that you know where the cardboard is nice and clean, because some of them comes with all sorts of chemicals like glue or something, and you don't want to add that stuff into your worm compost bin. So what to feed them? Anything organic, anything that was once alive, right? You can add coffee grounds, just don't add too much, because if you start adding too much, it's just going to make an acidic environment and they're not going to like it. You can throw your leftover pasta, vegetable, bread crust, fruit weight. Not with fruit, you have to if you start seeing fruit flies, one of the things to avoid them is obviously you can cover them, right? Make sure you cover all the fruit scraps with newspaper. But if you don't want to deal with fruit flies, what you can do is once you have your food scraps or your fruit scraps, put them in the microwave for a couple of minutes, and that ensures that kills all the eggs that come in the peels of the fruit. Or you can also put them in a Ziploc bag and put them in the freezer, let them freeze, thaw them, and then feed them to the worms. So you don't have to worry about fruit flies later coming up. Plate scrapings, rotted liver manure. Some people will tell you don't add manure to your worms. You know, it's gonna heat up and they're not gonna like it. It's probably killing it. But you have to remember that the red worms, they're actually horse manure worms, right? You just don't have to add too much when you have them in the box. Multi-refrigerated cleaning, it's perfect, right? Whenever I have a presentation about the worms, I always ask, you know, my coworkers or my family is like, hey, can I go through your fridge? And I just start grabbing stuff because, you know, I'm going to present that in the presentation. Uh, Things not to add: meat, fat, dairy products, or bones, or any pit manure. Stay away from all this stuff. And the reason is because they decompose lower, and you know they might start smelling if they don't go fast enough. And also it's going to attract unwanted visitors such as rodents, flies, you name it. Castings, how do you use them? Well, they're very beneficial, right? So here's some things that you can do. If you need them for germination, 20-30% castings with sand, perfect for that, right? Use it as a soil conditioner, add a layer of castings and on the barren soil, and it actually releases within a year or two. Every time you water, it's releasing fertilizer. Use it as a fertilizer, sprinkle the castings around the base of the plant, or fill the spray bottle and spray the plants. Now here's the thing with the spray. This is the stuff that you collect on the bottom. If you're gonna use that, make sure you spray it on a weed or a plant that you don't like. That way you know how to play with concentration. So if you damage a plant, hey, it was a weed, right? Or a plant you don't like, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm going through this really fast because I really want to get to the plant. So this was a presentation, and you know we just wanted to help you evaluate garden space that you can actually do something with really small space. Choose the right plants. Hey, Veggie Palooza, they have a lot of veggies, right? Lots to choose from. So check out our website. Use some of the tips that you learned today. Make your own compost. I strongly recommend that if you keep your soil healthy. You don't have to worry as much as pests. Keep this in mind. If you're a starter or for whoever, this is a learning process. We're all different. We all have different lifestyles. So make sure that you're learning, and best of all, make it enjoyable, right? Just enjoy gardening. So go start your own vegetable garden. Here are some resources. I'll go really quick, and then as we're asking the questions, I'll come back to this page, this slide. It's basically a University of California Agriculture and Natural Resources. They have lots of great resources. The UCIPM, it's perfect for pest management. You can get a lot of information. There's the California Native Plant Society, the UCCE Master Gardens of Orange County, lots of resources there. And there's a plethora of garden ideas there too. So, and of course, us at the Fullerton Arboretum, you can reach us. I believe we provided our emails, so Greg and myself. So make sure you reach out to us, and we'll get to the horticulture and try to answer your questions. So thank you, and thank you for supporting the Fullerton Arboretum. Please become a member to help that support. And then we'll move to questions.
So I'm going to give people some time. We've got about 7 minutes to take any more questions, and there are a couple more that have come in. I do have a couple more poll questions, and I'm just going to go through them pretty quickly. So if you can answer in the next 10 minutes our poll on, do you have a garden in your home? I'll give you about 10 seconds to answer the question. I'll give you another 5 seconds. Okay, great. So this is our result. So most of you look like you have a backyard garden. Great. Our next question is, just help us understand, after this workshop, are you planning to buy any plants at the Veggie Palooza? I'll give you guys another 5 seconds to answer. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yay! It looks like we got a very good percentage of you coming to join us at the Veggie Palooza. Thank you so much. And finally, we have our last question. Did you find this workshop helpful? This is all anonymous, so please be honest. It'll help us plan for future workshops. We were really hoping to offer something that was free, helpful, get you started, get you excited, get you connected back to the Arboretum. And most of you found that the workshop was helpful. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, so a couple questions, actually a few more had come in. Miguel, somebody asked about ink on the newspaper. Is that problematic? Yes or no?
Actually, the newspaper is actually fine, and what it is, it's soy-based ink, and it actually falls off the paper really quick. What I don't recommend is glossy paper, all that junk mail that you get, and the mail, obviously. Just stay away from that stuff. You don't want that. But newspaper, it's fine. That's what I've been using. Yeah.
Okay. Another question, where do you acquire worms? I know, so to let people here know, we do have a separate worm composting, composting workshop that will run again likely. So I hope you'll be able to join us on that one. But Miguel, is there a quick answer?
Yeah, you can look online. There's a lot of local places. But what I recommend is just go to your backyard, put some food scraps on the ground, cover them with leaves, water it a lot, make sure it's water, and just go look for the worms. Other ones, it's usually when I have my presentation, I have extra worms and I give them away. I always end up with a little bunch. So you can reach out just to people. You can purchase them online, like I said. I did it for the experience to make sure that they're doing the correct thing. So look for things. I don't want to say names, but there's a lot of local farmers doing it, but I would suggest doing it from home. You can just have them. If you have kids, it's perfect to go hunting for them.
Okay, so I'm going to stop with any of the composting questions at this point, any that come up, if you can join the workshop, and we'll share that information with everyone who signed up for this. We do have a couple questions about the order. For the general order on March 20th, are we going to get an email on how to order at 7 a.m.? So I think for everyone who signed up for this, we're going to follow up tomorrow with some specific links and instructions for you guys so that you have some clear ideas on how to order. I think that's the best way to answer that. Somebody also asked, after what time may non-members of Arboretum send their Veggipalooza email order? Yeah, so it would be starting March 20th. So we'll send all that information out tomorrow. Somebody also asked, do you have any suggestions for big aphid infestation?
So for aphids, I would recommend starting by just trying to blast them off the plants. Just if you want to go like as kind of natural and no chemicals at all, just try to blast them. Otherwise, you could use some insecticidal soap. I always recommend the insecticidal soap and or horticultural oil. The oil would work on aphids too. It's kind of like a non-toxic type of a chemical, and what happens is the oils actually smother the aphids because they breathe through their little orifices in their bodies. It'll actually smother them. The oils the soaps will actually break down their cuticle membrane and make them dry out in the sun. So start with those methods, and then you should be good after that.
Where are we at? It's about 1 minute. So I got a third question. Somebody's asking about basil, and somebody also asked what happened to my basil. I don't know if we can do like a quick 1 minute. I know people love talking about basil. I think people like growing it, and sometimes it doesn't always survive for many people. What happened with my basil, honestly, mine was thriving until winter hit. And I read somewhere that basil is not for outdoor winter planting. Otherwise, I think outdoor planting for my basil plant was one of the best things I did. I've tried planting them indoors in a container. But my guess is sun, water, sun, water, sun, water, and not cold temperature.
Yeah, basil is very sensitive to colder temperatures, so that may have been the issue, especially if you were doing it in the past few months. But planting in April, planting that basil plant out in the ground, you should be good to go.
I have basil and it survived the winter fine, but it's on the low ground. I don't have a raised bed on it. It's just a planter, and it's thriving. It's flowering. I actually collected some of the seeds. So, yeah.
It's 7 o'clock. I want to respect everyone's time. So thank you everyone for joining us. The listing of the plants are available online at the Fullerton Arboretum website. Again, we will be sending out to everyone who signed up for this workshop an email tomorrow with more specific instructions, links, all of that. Again, thank you so much for joining us. It was really great to host this. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Miguel. And I hope many of you will join us again for future workshops like this.
Thank you, everybody.
Everyone. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Christina.